All right, everybody. It is a Rise and Fire Friday. Once again, my name is Chris Exusion. You can find me at Chris Ebom on Twitter. Hey, we had a good show last week, going 3-1 NFL, winning week. Can't complain. Short but sweet. We got to the facts, everything that you need to know, and not a whole lot of time for the most part. And guys, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you don't know, I'm with Jock Market right now. It's fantasy sports, meaning the stock exchange. If you're looking to have a little fun in the DFS world, a little change up, get in with Jockmark. Use the code EBOM1 when you sign up. You get 100% bonus sign up to $100. Helps me out. I really appreciate it. You can buy for 10, 20, whatever you want, up to $100. Doesn't matter to me either way. It's just works out for me in general. But hey, we got another week. Hey, and also another guest. First time guest here. Tech Money, my guy here. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you? I'm glad to be here. It's an honor. It's a privilege. I'm excited.
Hey, man, I appreciate you having it on. This is great, man. I'm going to have a little sip here, but anyway, for the most part, you can find us on Twitter and on the YouTube channel. But, pretty much looking into the weekend, keeping it simple. We've seen the line movements. We've seen how the betting public's going on. And, there's just some stuff that stuck out to me for the most part. And I know that you have some things that you want to talk about as well. But I wanted to dive deep a little bit into the NFL to start off for the most part. When I'm looking at the card this week for the most part, I'm going to keep it local here for the first game. The Philadelphia Eagles, they're at the Chicago Bears. The line has went up to 9 right now on the road. Money's coming in on the Eagles, and it's going up. I actually like the first half. I locked it in at -5.5. Bottom line, Eagles have been, tearing it up in the first half. The offense has been clicking. Chicago's defense, their run defense is absolutely terrible. We know that's like the bread and butter that gets everything going. We know Jalen Hurts, he can rush for over that 100 yards. And then when they have to defend him, the passing game just opens up like crazy. And I think the Bears are going to have a problem here. I know that the Eagles haven't been the best on the road covering the number, but I think this first half number at 5.5, I love it. I'm not overthinking it. I don't think it's based off of last week's stuff, but I really like the fact that they have been playing good all year, and they haven't been that great on the road covering the number. I think this turns around a little bit, so I like the -5.5 here.
I like that actually, and you know what? There's a lot of statistics on just teams coming out harder in the first half and covering at least what a capper or viewer's intentions are early in the first half. I don't have stats on that, but I've been reading a little bit about it. Something I've been pondering about, and then I think just to note, I think the Birds are 5-1 in their last 6 against the Bears. I think it's straight up. But again, it is the Eagles, and I think for the Eagles, to some of your first half logic, if they also want to protect their players, right? I mean, we know they're going to the playoffs, but we know the NFL. You also don't want to kind of just throw in your guys and let a game go. You don't do that. You just don't ever do that. That's not even a question. So I think first half they go hard. It just makes absolute sense. If you're going to attack with the Birds, attack the first half. I like it.
Yeah, I think they start off strong, fast. We know them to be a really good second quarter covering team, probably the best one in the NFL. Just everything's clicking right now, and I think this is a good spot. I think this is a spot where they're on the road, where they can make it happen, and their run defense stinks. That just means Hurts can run wild and Sanders and all that. But another game that I was looking at with another NFC East foe, Dallas at Jacksonville. Now, this is pretty interesting over here. Dallas, I was against them last week with the Houston Texans getting 18 points, which was crazy. They ended up blowing out the team, Indy, on prime time, and then they became a huge favorite. I faded that immediately. But this is like the perfect time to jump on the Cowboys over here. Jacksonville absolutely upsets the Titans, who they never beat. They absolutely smashed them. Jacksonville is getting a ton of the tickets. We're getting to -4 right here. I'm not overthinking it, Tech Money. I like -4 here. I think they can easily win by a touchdown. What are your thoughts on it?
I think Dallas has the better defense. And when I say better, I almost feel like better may kind of be giving them a discount. Mm-hmm. So just to back up your thoughts and not to be biased on your thoughts, I like watching Jaguars offense and the excitement they can bring from time to time with Trevor Lawrence there. I think you're on the right one. I do. Without even digging in further, just that Cowboys defense, if they show up, boom, the other team has a harder. That's the edge. That's the edge you have to cover the spread, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we know that the run game's big with Dallas, with Zeke and Pollard's fantastic. Like, what a player. He's playing so well this year. He's been outstanding. When I'm looking at what Jacksonville does against the rush is just absolutely terrible. Their stuff rate, they're like the worst in the entire NFL. And that pretty much means they don't get in the backfield to stop the running back. So those running backs are going to get full head of steam, ready to go. It just fits right into the play here, and I always talk about it every week. The NFL makes these lines based on last week perception of what happens. If you look at past future lines, they're completely different than what you see here. So we're getting Dallas at a discount, and the Jags just they look great. Lawrence had an incredible game, throwing 3 touchdowns, no picks. I would be more than happy to take the boys here.
Yeah, and you know what? Just a quick thing that you can look at on both sides, but I'm going to plant the seed. But 5% better. Dallas Cowboys on offense are 5% better on third down conversion. And I just think if you just do basic math, 1 or 2 third down conversions gives you the edge to get just about a field goal or 2. And I think you said the spread's at
currently at 4 right now.
4. That's the new trend now. They don't give us a 3 anymore when they historically may have. But I just think that a 5%, it's not a lot, but a 5% third down percentage can be, if you close your eyes and think about the game of when the third down is so critical, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say it hasn't converted yet, but knowing you have 5% and more, and if you were to do a Saved by the Bell, Zach Morris timeout and say, timeout. Okay, wait, I still haven't hit that 5% threshold. Okay, maybe this third down is going to actually be successful here. And that's the one that on the 39-yard line on the attacking side, boom, you get a conversion, and now you're pressuring for points. So just the little things there. I think Dallas is in the spot to sneak away with this one.
No, I like that third down conversion stuff that you're talking about over there, and I think that kind of fits into their stuff rate that I was talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have a really tough time of stopping those third and shorts, especially with Zeke. Zeke has been the king of getting that 1 and 2 yards falling over. Pollard's been more of the dynamic kind of running back for the most part, but he's been that 1-2 yard gain kind of guy, and they've been kind of leaning on that for the most part. Another game I was looking at actually was actually on Saturday. So the Ravens are going against the Browns. The Ravens are currently a 3-point dog. I like the Ravens here. Once again, Cleveland with another bad rushing defense, and we know that Huntley can run with it, and we got Dobbins back. I mean, I'm looking at what their depth chart is right now. Everyone's pretty healthy for the most part. The right guard and the right tackle are questionable, but they're going to go for the sweep here. I'm not usually a fan of going for the sweep here, but a lot of people are going with Cleveland this week, and Watson's still figuring out this offense. The tight end, he was playing pretty well last week. He's starting to get a little familiar with him for the most part, but overall, I like Baltimore in this spot. I think the rush defense, once again, I'm harping it for a team that loves running the ball for the most part. But I think getting these 3 points right here, I think they're definitely a live dog. I think they win outright, honestly. But I'm on the Ravens here with the +3.
Hey, look, so I like finding these unique ATS trends just because it's it excites me. Whether they work or not, different story. What's happening. But here's a cool one. And what's great about this is you and I didn't prep for this together. So for the viewers out there, I'm actually not biasedly just leaning on everything he's picking, but going to try and give you my opinion or information. I don't have an opinion on this game because I didn't do my homework on this game. But there is a stat here where the Ravens are actually 8-2 against the Browns ATS if the Ravens come off a win. So they just won last week. So that scenario is flicked on. That's the scenario that's triggered. And in this scenario coming into play, the Browns, they're 8-2 ATS after they come off a win. So that backs you up. That's an 80% ATS trend, a unique one, which I like looking at those little things there, some rare things there. So I think that backs up the Ravens, backs you up. And I don't know. I mean, can we really put money behind this Cleveland organization again here where we're at? So I know for people who may not be watching in depth, it's hard to just kind of back the Ravens at times with some of the issues with Lamar off and on. But I think when you really get down to it, I'm just looking at the ATS trend. And I know you did your homework. I think I'm with you there on the Ravens too.
Yeah, and I always like going against the public money. It's not always bulletproof for the most part, but I think you're just blindly kind of I mean, I've been thrown into this before. You know, you live, you learn from your mistakes. Like, can this team really sweep this kind of team? I already had when I had my show tackle board before. This was one of my futures. I had the Ravens like plus money. I think they were plus 150 or something
Right.
to win the conference, to win their division. So that's still good in play right now. But I just feel like this is a spot where the Ravens are. The line should be a lot smaller, but it's super imploded because Huntley's in and Lamar's not out. And I know how good Lamar is, but Huntley is definitely serviceable. He's not a bad backup at all. I don't think you lose like a lot, but like it's not as big as what the number is. So yeah, so that's what I like right there as well. And I'm going to get into my last NFL game here. It's Kansas City at Houston. Kansas City's currently laying 14 points on the road. I'm going with the Chiefs here. It's a big line, but I'm all right with it for the most part. And yeah, I mean, the pass defense is terrible for the Texans, and they kind of just played their Super Bowl for the most part, playing a really close game. They actually had a real good chance of winning. I can't see that happening twice, but I just think they're going to be able to pass on them all day. And even if they score 30 points, I don't know if the Texans, I mean, Pierce, I heard Pierce is out. There's a lot of people that just got ruled out for this week, and the line hasn't moved, which is kind of scaring me a little bit, but Kansas City should be able to kill these guys for the most part, but Pierce being out is huge for them.
Yeah, and I mean, no comment for me on this game. I just haven't looked into it. And I mean,
right,
it is a big spread, but it is Andy Reid and the Chiefs, and it is a Texas team that I don't think the Chiefs are going to come in. Again, I didn't look at what the first half spread is. Maybe that's something to consider because you have me thinking about it from the Eagles pick that you have earlier.
Yeah, right.
But I just don't think this is a game where the Chiefs. So I'm losing the word I'm thinking about, but sometimes they team or fans will say teams will look ahead.
Yeah.
And on paper, you might say, oh, it's a look ahead spot. It could be, but I just don't think Andy Reid and some of this staff and some of this skill and talent, and maybe even on a positive side, some of the arrogance that, you know, hey, we're the Chiefs, we're here. I still think I can't go. It's a big. So in the NFL, I don't like taking big spreads. I think if I was to take a big spread, I'm not going to argue against someone taking the Kansas City Chiefs on the big spread.
Yeah, I think their pass offense is just, you know, explosive.
Right.
Kelsey should be able to be all crazy. If you're looking at like look ahead for the most part, you got Seattle, who's kind of, you know, on the downward spiral. Denver, they're having their issues, and then, you know, the Las Vegas Raiders. We all know they've been a dumpster fire all year for the most part. So I think it's just this is going to be the time where everyone jumps on KC right now. That, oh my gosh, they're world beaters. They're beating these guys, beating teams left. You know, they're going to be beating teams by double digits these next few weeks. And I just think Andy Reid's getting them ramped up, ready to roll. And this is just too easy to spot. And I just love the fact that a bad team like the Texans last week was able to keep a game close against a really good Cowboys team. They can't do that twice against another really good team. Like who are we kidding over here? I don't think that's going to be it right there for the most part. But that's going to do it for me for the NFL for the most part. I don't know if there's anything that stood out for you in the NFL market at all.
Nothing specific yet. I was going to dig into some props, but I really will lean on some roster situations Sunday morning.
Okay. What were you looking at prop wise? Was there anything that like you were kind of eyeing just to, you know, see what we're going to look into for later in the weekend?
You know, one of my favorite ones was always taking receiver number 2 against the Seahawks. It seems to work a lot this year, which we had that Thursday night. I didn't look into anything yet because, you know, I was being stubborn in the fact that I was going to wait for some of the starting lineups, but just a quick idea, because I know the public and the new public likes to bet and have fun with props and SGPs and things like that. So I know it's late in the season and this is nothing brilliant I'm going to share with you, but just assuming there's new folks out there, maybe in Maryland, you know, that state just started. Ohio's coming up, if I'm not mistaken, or they may have opened up. But you can take, for example, a scenario where, you know, a defense's pass defense isn't that stellar. It doesn't have to be the worst, but it's just not that great. And if you've done your homework and you know a specific receiving, a wide receiver. So, for example, my Seahawks example, we attacked the Seahawks with receiver number 2. Now, what if you take like a receiver number 2 and you throw on, that day you like the fact that the QB's the playbook and the QB's a more of a passing side of a team. You can take maybe one of those, you can combine QB pass attempts and you can hit the yardage of that player. And now, for example, if you are a follower of mine, one of the props I did on Sunday was Julio Jones over 18.5 yards. I have friends of mine personally who set me
18.5?
18.5 in the morning. I moved up to 20.5 within the first few hours.
That's pretty good.
18.5. It's beautiful. What people did, though, was they took the 18.5 and they combined it with Tom Brady over 38 attempts. And I think some of them had to adjust it to 40 attempts. Some of them had to adjust it to 20.5 with Julio and 40, just to be transparent.
Yeah.
But they were getting about a plus 375.
Oh, okay.
And it worked. So I want people to start thinking, because I know a lot of you viewers are smart. You've been watching enough football to say, okay, when you play this team, this position does well. The book's starting to juice that. They know as well. So maybe you can take that. You can get alternate yards for that person, pull it down. I'm just giving quick ideas. And then take the QB attempt, something like that. Don't get too fancy with parlays and SGBs. So there's viewers out there that know me. I don't promote those at all. But I'm getting people to think outside the box a little bit, because there are opportunities for you to kind of take your interest in your hobby and kind of tweak them into a play that makes it fun.
No, I get it, and it's a good script play. I think I'm like with you.
There you go. Yep.
Script play for the most part, and I mean for myself, I'm not a big parlay guy. Like I don't really promote parlays or anything. That I can't take the swings of it because there's a lot of losses with it. Yep. So it just drives me crazy. But I like two there in general. But I know PointsBet, they do like how many yards did Julio end up finishing with that day? I was just kind of curious.
I forgot. I know when I looked,
like 40 yards or 50
he had 30 something when we cashed, and I think he added on some at the end.
Okay.
And that was with the missed catch in the beginning of the game, which would have covered, I believe, just after the catch. It was Brady had I'm not degrading Brady at all, but it was a bad throw. It was a late kind of throw. The throw was short, and Julio still tried. I think if the throw was a little bit more on target, Julio had that, and then the YAC yards after the catch, and we would have caught it. So it's just something to think about.
No, absolutely. I know PointsBet, they have some things with the wide receivers where it's like, let's say he was like at 18. And It's great when you see that number tick up to 20.5 after you get that 18. You're like, oh, man, I'm on the right side. Whether it hits or not but at least you're on the right side and you're ahead of the line. And that's always like a kind of thing that I always had like a pet peeve with like horse racing. Because it's like you bet a horse and then it's like, and then when it goes off, like he could be 10-1, then he drops down to like 3-1. You're like, why don't I get paid on that 10-1? But that's a whole nother story, a whole nother thing. But as far as PointsBet goes, like where he was like at 18.5 and everything, they have some things with like, oh, will he get like 30 yards? And it's like boosted up like a decent amount. Like you can take like the alternate like above. But I think like most of the books have it. But I think PointsBet's kind of more juicy with that for the most part. Not a sponsor, but that would be great if it was for the most part. But
I have no idea. Now I'm not an expert, and I for the last couple of years I actually don't do that many prop bets. And no idea why Julio was at 18.5. I think before going into the game, the stat was 5-1 or 6-1 where he hit that this year. And in his career, he was 152 of 160, which I believe is 97%. And then after he got this one, it was like 97.2%.
Right.
No idea why the book had that number. I didn't do too much homework before and after, but it was a very low number. I was thankful for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at what he's done of late for the most part. 38 yards, 28 yards, 40 yards, 53 was like his high, but he's been averaging 12.9. So he hasn't been really amazing for the most part, but now
that may have been it. We may have caught just the book kind of just looking at basic math and saying, we can't put it too high.
And the fact it was 18.5, I think that's saying a lot, because he, like what I'm looking at since the season's been going on, he's been getting a lot more receptions, a lot more his target's been going up every week, like significantly, like almost one target extra each week, which is wild to see. Like 2, 4, 5, 5, 5, and then 4.
Tom's on a 12-step program with him, 1 week at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. But hey, that was a good find by you there for sure. That's definitely stuff to look at there. I like the fact that you put two together. It's not like you're throwing a lottery ticket, but you get a good bang for your buck kind of. It's hard to hit one bet, right?
It's hard. It's hard. It's just a friend of mine showed it to me. He even bet it a little bit for me on the side. He's like, I found this because of you. And I'm just like, okay. And it had me thinking. I say, all year I haven't looked. So every time I won a WR2 against the Seahawks, maybe I could have looked at maybe in certain teams I could have taken the quarterback to throw one touchdown.
Right.
Or more, because you can get that with the two together, and just it's more for fun, right? And you can get some odds there. But I didn't come equipped for anything NFL like that, but that's where my mindset is. And come Sunday morning, we'll see some adjustments, we'll see some line movements, and something will come about. And if I do, I'll make sure to tag you, and so folks that are following you and following the show will kind of have like a prelude to follow to it. Follow along you if I were to do something.
No, man, absolutely. I want to be informed, man, because I might be feeling froggy. I want to leap. I'm not a big prop guy myself, but hey, man, if I see something with those kind of numbers and you're finding something, man, I love it.
Yeah. But with the props, I feel like the books are just as smarter ahead of us all.
Yeah. The props are tough. I mean, I'm not a big prop guy per se. I know some guys, that's all they do are props, but I've been doing sports betting for, I don't know, 20 years or so, maybe. So I've always been like a traditionalist with like the spreads and the over-unders, and that's pretty much where I kept it at for the most part. But that'll do for the NFL. We're going to get into college, but today was not a good day. Today was a very unlucky day. We had two games where pretty much on the wrong end. The first game, the quarterback got knocked out in the first half. I had that first half line. And then the second half, that UTSA game, that was wild. That they couldn't put up any points against Troy. I know they have a good defense, but it was just brutal. The Roadrunners have been fantastic all year round. So, unfortunately, I had the money line that did not hit as well. They got Frank Harris was throwing picks, and that's not usually like him. He's a good dual threat quarterback. I need some help tech money. What are you looking at for the weekend?
So here's what we're going to do. I'll cover some of the games tomorrow, but there's something that I think I'm really liking. Now, I haven't touched it yet, and I thought, let's do the show. Maybe we'll bet it live or we'll bet it after the show. But I'm looking at the SMU and BYU game, and it's funny because I usually come with the biasness with BYU, but here's the scenario. BYU is literally looking – okay, their current quarterback, he got hurt on November 26th. It's an ankle injury. He's probably not going to play. And that's where the line movements happened. Okay, it was BYU -1.5, went all the way to BYU +5.5. We're seeing it at BYU +3.5. So to get to where I'm talking about, I'm leaning a little bit with SMU -3.5. But let me just explain a little bit. It's not just because he's out. BYU, their second, third, fourth, and fifth string quarterbacks are out.
Yeah.
So it's getting really nasty over there. Also on BYU, they're taking hits on defense. They're leading linebackers out through transfer portal. Couple other situations on defense. I don't know if you heard their defense coordinator was just fired. So I think BYU is coming in a bit broken at critical areas. Okay, where SMU, if you go dig in on your own, I'm not going to bore people with numbers on the offense. Their offense on paper has been very productive.
Right.
And they're coming in intact for the most part. I should say more than the most part. They're coming in intact. If you were just to look without digging in, you might say, well, this guy's out. Well, there's a guy or two that are out. They haven't played in 6 or 8 weeks anyway, if you dig in or so. So I just think SMU is coming in well prepared because they come in with the roster. Also, personal opinion coming up here, a lot of motivation, theme, and pride. The defensive coordinator just got fired. Does that pump up the defense? It usually can if players in the locker room didn't like the coordinator. Right. But you also have the lead linebackers out. I think the linebacker, coming from an area of growing up following Penn State and Linebacker University, we used to call it, and just watching guys, even like A.J. Hawk at Ohio State many years ago, and just I'm a Pusluzny in Penn State. I'm a big fan of when there's a leading linebacker at the core of the defense. for that team. When that player is out, I think there's repercussions. Now, when you have that type of player out and you have the defensive coordinator out, I think that does hurt BYU tomorrow. And I think the severe quarterback depth issues hurts. Now, here's the deal. BYU could be someone that can pull some quarterback out of nowhere. We don't know. And that's the thing. We just don't know. But
Right.
it is far-fetched to say, hey, I'm going in with my chips on the 6th-string quarterback. Or is that even a true statement? Or is it just we have a new guy coming in for the next regime? I don't know. I like SMU here, 3.5. As I dig through, as I did go through the games tomorrow, I still feel there's one more game I like, but I think this one I feel the safest, even though maybe there could be a debate outside of this video, this segment. A lot of pride, SMU program, BYU program. Historically, I kind of support BYU sometimes. Now, another stat, I did have it up here, but BYU, I believe in bowl games, they're 3-5 straight up. And they're 2-8 in their last 10 bowl games, if anyone cares about that. So not only do I like the scenario here for SMU, you also have trends here going against BYU. And that's why I think if I take if I had a best bet right now lined up for tomorrow for my bowl game, my personal opinion and everything I looked at, I like SMU minus 3.5. I hate 3.5, the number. Obviously, the books you can buy 3 have their number at 4, so they make you pay very expensive for 3. I don't suggest it at this point. If we're right, we're going to be right.
Yeah, it's going to be either a blowout or it's going to
land on 3. Right.
So I was looking at this game as well. It's mostly at -4. There's some 4.5s. I mean, there's a lot of SMU money coming in, and rightfully so. I mean, there's no quarterback here for the most part. I think this is kind of a situation where you get into where this is a good first half play because this quarterback's going to have, he's going to have to figure out on the fly. I mean, defense is kind of, all the linebackers are out for the most part. Wilgar, Toley, Pilley, they're all gone. I mean, they're either injured, transfer portal, all that stuff. Wide receiver Hill's out by injury. But SMU, I mean, this over-under is really high. I think it's kind of too high, honestly. But go on. What were you going to say?
So I didn't want to cut you off on the over-under.
Cool.
It was up around 73.5, and I think with the quarterback news, they dropped it about 10 or 9. And I do see a 3.5 handle at BetMGM at -110.
Yeah, so I mean, it did drop a lot, and I think the books are just kind of like, oh fuck, like we're in trouble. They can't really drop this down that much more. I think it's a good SMU line based on the over-under because I think that means they are going to put up points, and I think the fact that BYU is going to start off slow, I really like them for the first half. SMU, it's kind of sort of a cop out for the most part, but you can find -2.5. -115 on PointsBet, but there are some -3s like BetMGM. But I would take the 2.5. Like in these kind of situations, for me personally, I like taking the juice, a little bit of a small juice hit, just for like to get past that key number for the most part, because and most of the time it does pay off, but it's just kind of like a safe kind of thing where it does help out at those points. But I like where you're at with SMU. I think a lot of people like them, and you have to get on them kind of early. But I think if you're late to the party, I think the first half bet, you get so much more value. Personally,
that first half bet makes so much sense today because if BYU's coming with the quarterback from the local pharmacy, right. They can adjust. You have to give them credit to make adjustments at halftime. And they have no idea what they're coming in with that first half. That's
no, absolutely not.
And that kid's going to be scared shitless.
No, absolutely. Bowl game too on top of that.
Right.
I mean, I know you were talking about
one at night. SMU's got a big these are they got loyal fan bases in my opinion.
Yeah, but as far as the defensive coordinator being out, if I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, that guy I have seen before where he pulls out all the stops because he wants to impress and wants to keep a job. He might have some crazy schemes where he's just like, I'm playing with house money. Like, I'm defensive coordinator for this game. If I can shut down SMU, like I'm throwing the kitchen sink at it. But, that might not be the case, but I have seen it done before for the most part. But I like that you brought this game up. I would personally lean first half, but I like the SMU to cover that spread too. I agree with you not buying the juice up for the entire game, because I think if they are going to cover, they're going to be close to like a 10-point victory or
Right, right.
touchdown. So I don't think the number is going to really matter. But I think for the first half, I think it fits out a little bit better if you play that 2.5,
Yeah.
but the 3. But I'm totally agree with you with not buying that down there. What else were you kind of eyeing up?
Well, for eyeing up, I just want to get into something I caught towards the end, eyeing up potentially maybe another play. So we'll get to that, and then we'll go through some of the other games tomorrow. I'm looking at this Rice versus Southern Miss. Southern Miss is -6.5. And the reason why is Rice, to sum it up, is facing a few injuries here, and they're most likely they won't have TJ McMahon. So they're facing injuries at the quarterback. And Southern Miss, I mean, preseason, they were, people were really high on them. The season came out to be maybe a little bit tougher, but they did fight through, and they got Frank Gore Jr. from what I'm reading. Check into it into tomorrow. Maybe they'll add a hook more if there's 100% news or not. But if what I'm understanding is Frank Gore is going to be ready to play. I think they can control the run game. And
for Southern Miss, right?
For Southern Miss, yeah.
Frank Gore Jr. plays for Southern Miss. Okay,
yep. So I like Southern Miss a little bit here tomorrow at 6.5. I really do. That's one that if I were to take a second pick, I might get on that one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is a game I'm personally staying away from. I was looking through this. I didn't really see much of an edge for myself. But if you can get that below that touchdown score, that's what you're like in there with. Miss.
Yep. Now there's some funny games tomorrow. So here's what I'll do. We'll go through just a couple games, and then I have a list of trends. So at least we can let people know, hey, if you want to bet these games later, go to this video marker. You can check trends out. Now tomorrow, this is where bowl games just get too funny with this corporate stuff. The Wasabi Bowl, I think I'm covering here.
And New York, the New York Wasabi Bowl, yeah.
Okay, so I think that's the one with Cincy and Louisville, if I'm not mistaken, at Fenway.
Yeah. The one where it's the coach, he just left from Louisville. Actually go to Cincy, which is kind of wild for him. I apologize. The Fenway Bowl, not New York. I'm thinking of the Pinstripe Bowl.
I'm sorry. Yeah, so we'll cover. Sorry, maybe I'm all over the place. So the Cincy Louisville at Fenway.
No, I called it the New York Bowl. That's why I was saying that. But that's the Pinstripe Bowl. This is the Fenway Bowl with the Wasabi. Yeah, Wasabi.
Okay.
You're good. You're perfect. I messed up.
Yeah, no. So it's funny, we have a bowl, we have a Wasabi marketing bowl game at Fenway, Red Sox, Boston baseball field, and here's a crazy thing. So, like you said, Louisville head coach leaving, Satterfield, he's going to be at Cincy. He's going to be there tomorrow. So that's interesting. That's a hit for Louisville. But Louisville also lost both of their coordinators. So don't know how fresh that news is, but I have that. So. I think that just makes Louisville just in shambles. But again, I also don't know who's coming in. Maybe there's some powerhouse people stepping up, but I would have to assume not. I think that's interesting. All right. Supposedly, and we have to check on this because weather changes. When I did this stuff early in the morning, maybe last night, rainy and windy weather. So without the QBs, rain and wind, you're out here at Fenway, you might see a lot of running happening. I do understand the over-under is dropped. I don't have the exacts on that, but just something to keep in mind. Both quarterbacks are out. Louisville's out of basically all types of management, I'll call it, for coordinator, offense, defense, and their head coach. The head coach is going to Cincinnati. Since he does lose Fickle, I think it's interesting, right? Bad weather. We got a few assume quarterbacks can't get the grip going or understand what's going on. They can't make adjustments on the fly for this game or even at halftime running game. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When ACC teams play an American athletic team that produces 68.9 points per game, the ACC team is 9-1-1 on the over. But we've brought this thing down to 39.5 because we're expecting a run game. So this game to me is just messy from a capping perspective. We're at Fenway Park. The over-under is dropped, I'm assuming, 10 points with all this news. If you look at ATS trend, though, it points to these games going over. And in my opinion, I think ATS trends do matter because it's all part of the closing line calculation that the books have put in, and it's recorded. So I want to take the over because the trend's there and the number's been dropped, and I have an excuse on why the number's been dropped. But does that actually tell me that I'm going to get enough quality play on the field? Right. I don't know, so I have to skip. I have to skip the game. But I do want to share, all that stuff. I don't want someone going to bet this game and not know. I didn't know about all this, so I don't want anyone betting this game not just having a better picture about it. Yeah, I mean,
No.
it's one of those games. Like even if I went to Cincy, I don't know if I'd bet it for pride. Stay away from it.
No, I hear you. I mean, originally I was liking Louisville. I've been back and forth on this game, and the tough part is Malik Cunningham, quarterback for Louisville. You talked about him. He's like a great dual threat quarterback. He had really kind of like a down year. I was expecting a lot bigger things. He was supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC this year. Unfortunately, he didn't live up to that hype, but he did account for 20 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions, 12 of them being rushing. But yeah, he kind of like fell off. He was supposed to be kind of like a Lamar Jackson, but he didn't really get it going. And honestly, it was a lot of it was the competition wasn't all that great. Like, yeah, Syracuse, that first game of the year, I was on Louisville. Syracuse became a world beater like throughout the year. They were awesome at home in the Dome. Like they were just untouchable, which was crazy.
Right.
But then they played like Wake Forest, Clemson, tough games there. Wake Forest with that high-powered offense and everything. But Malik Cunningham being out of this game, I don't know how they're going to really do it. It's going to be really tough. And then the fact that you have the coach that knows the team that well, and he probably knows the backup pretty well, so you're not going to really be surprised with the backup. Because that's his team. And I mean, you're telling me he's not telling them like, hey, like this guy does this guy does that. Like he obviously is he's going to be coaching this team. So I'm kind of leaning Cincy, even though I wasn't big on Cincy all year, honestly. But once again, tough stay away game.
Yeah.
If I had to take something, I would take Cincy.
And what's interesting, I shared that 9-1-1 stat to the over, but Cincinnati has actually gone under in 6 of their last 7 bowl games, if anyone's looking. So if you're just looking at trends, they're conflicting each other, all these movements. I think, if it's a tough one for me. I'm sure there's people out there that know what to do and what to pick for it, but man, this was just a funny one. It's, Wasabi, Fenway.
Yeah.
Switching coaches,
Yeah, the coach. Yeah, it's actually his bowl game. He left the team, go to that team. But I'm going to jump into a college game that actually kind of sticks out for me. It's going to be on Sunday. It's a lone game. It's UConn at Marshall.
Okay.
I always love this kind of scenario where a team that has just been god awful for the longest time, and now they're in a bowl game. They way overachieved this year. This is like incredible. Like talk about a team that's really getting up for a bowl game. The UConn Huskies, Jim Moore Jr. is so funny. I knew how bad UConn was for like the longest time. And then I watched them against Army. I'm like, oh my gosh, Jim Moore Jr. is the coach of UConn. I'm like, I can't believe this. This is wild. They actually got like a name to go to UConn, which I don't know how they got anybody there in the first place for football. But they had some injuries that were going on. Nathan Carter transferring, but Keelan Marion, he's going to be good to go. He was kind of on the fence about being injury, with the injury, and Cam Ross, I think he'll be there too. That's going to help out their pass attack a lot. And then with the Thundering Herd, they pretty much snuck into this bowl game for the most part, winning the last 3 of the last 4, getting in there, getting bowl eligible. That does say a lot, but the line is huge. I got it at 10.5. It dropped down to 10. You could probably see some 10.5s for the most part. If I'm looking on sports books right now, real quick, you're watching this later or now, which I appreciate. Thank you guys. If you guys have any questions about any games, we can talk about them. That is no problem. But now I'm looking at there is actually an 11. There's a 10.5, and a 10. So it's kind of all over the board. So wherever you shop for your numbers, be sure to check all the books and everything. But I don't know. Motivation's always key. I started off on the wrong track so far today, but plenty of bowl games. We could bounce back here. I'm taking UConn here. This is kind of like that Houston Dallas Cowboys scenario I had last week. The stats really don't go well with the Huskies, but just some things can't be put in the stats. And I've seen this story before, like a team that should get killed. And I understand UConn's been a covering machine all year, but I think this is a great spot for them. I think Jim Moore will get these guys ready. Give me 10.5 with UConn.
Okay. I like it. I haven't looked into it. So, that's something I'll I'm gonna note actually and take a look at into for Sunday. And and not to jump off that, but I forgot to mention the thing with the Rice and Southern Miss we just talked about prior to this is that if you dig into it, Rice is actually one of the worst teams on defense coming into these bowl games. And there's people, I've had conversation with people, and I think it's out there. They're not even supposed to be here. It's not like an opinion. They've had a couple times where they were supposed to be eligible, didn't work out, or something. And again, if you look at their defense, it is one of the worst in the bowl games. And now they're without their quarterback. So I knew I was missing something other than just a quarterback and injury piece to attack on Rice. It is the fact that they are one of the weaker teams showing up to the bowl games, and there are arguments and debates that they shouldn't be at a bowl game.
Yeah, as far as this UConn game goes, Zion Turner, he's a freshman, which is kind of scary. But I think the fact that you have a veteran coach like Jim Moore Jr. that's pretty much seen everything been in the NFL, I think that kind of offsets the freshman. And in his defense, though, this year, he does have more touchdowns and interceptions. He has 9 TDs to 7 interceptions. 7 interceptions, I get, is not that great. But you know what? Still throwing for 60%. He's been pretty decent for the most part. And his rushing, he's rushed for a touchdown this year, so he has some mobility, but he's been relying more on his arm. But I'm always kind of worrisome with the freshman quarterback coming into this, especially with this kind of team. But I kind of trust Jim Moore Jr. here. I think he gets these guys ready. I don't think he'll coach them up, and he'll make sure that, he's not trying to do too much. So that's kind of where I'm looking at there. Was there anything else that caught your eye for the bowl games this weekend?
Yeah, so for Saturday, to do a quick summary on some of the games, like some of the games that stick out. So Florida, for stats and things, this ATS trends. Florida versus Oregon State. Oregon State, as we started the show, was -8.5. I don't know if it moved since we started the show, but the stat I want to share is when a Pac-12 team at the bowl game is -6.5 or stronger or more of a favorite, so trigger on here for 8.5. They're actually 16-32 ATS, and this is going back for 30 years, back to about 1992. Wow. So Oregon State is in that scenario. So just to put some context, to put it again, to summarize it, Oregon State being -8.5 is in a scenario where the trend is against them. They're in a 16-32 trend, going back to 1992 or so, where the Pac-12 teams don't cover these large spreads in this scenario. So that's something interesting to note there.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that game as well, if I could just jump in real quick.
Yeah.
So the big issue has been the whole quarterback situation for Florida, and that's been kind of raising the number up. I think it went up as high as 10.5.
Right.
Oregon State, a veteran team. I was always kind of worrisome this game because the line just shot up so much and everyone loves Oregon State. Florida, I mean, you got to look at it here. The recruiting of the SEC is a lot better than the Pac-12. I mean, that's just plain and simple, especially for a school like Florida, regardless of how good Oregon State's been this year. Now the line has dropped down to 8.5. That's really scary. Like, I think the books are begging you to take Oregon State here. I'm not falling for it. I originally liked Oregon State, but after I saw this line movement and all these people taking Oregon State for the most part, I want to just see what the actual percentage is right now. 1 second.
And again, if you're taking Florida in this scenario, just on that trend, the trend's 32 of 16. It's in your favor. So
yeah. So I guess more people are taking Florida spread right now. It wasn't like that originally.
So 66%. 66.6% trend on that we talked about. That would support Florida to cover because the Pac-12 teams in these bowl games stronger than 6.5 just don't cover.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning Florida this game. I'm curious to see if this line keeps dropping. I'm going to see how it goes because we're kind of at a dead number with 8.5.
Right.
If it keeps definitely dropping down, I'm definitely taking Florida. I mean, I just think it's the right side. The talent will be there because of the recruiting. I mean, you won't have the names because a lot of them left, but there's guys in waiting that are ready to go for playing for Florida. Big program. I mean, I like that spot, and I like that trend that you put out there. Honestly, that's like a 33%. Only a win percentage for the Pac-12 there. So I mean,
once that spread gets high,
they're not covering that spread. It's 66% of the time. So I mean, 7%.
You can blindly put, sprinkle a little on there if you just want action. They say, look, I'm watching this game. I'm with some friends and family, but I'm taking a trend with Florida that, historically going back 30 seasons now, 30 years, we're not, it's a trend, whatever. If you believe there's one computer program that's built to build a college football line, well, then for 30 years, it's programmed in a way where now you know what to do with it.
Right.
That makes sense. So,
no, absolutely. Do you have anything else for the college slate?
I do like there's line movement on the Fresno State game. It opened at -1. I believe it's at about -4 when we started the show. It all depends on Fresno State's quarterback, Jake Haener, if I'm not mistaken his name.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is when the Cougars played, I'm dropping his name now, Michael something Jr. That team did well against Washington. And you kind of have you could have that type of quarterback scenario with Fresno State here. And maybe that's where that line movement's happening. So I like Fresno State a little bit, but I think I like this SMU scenario better because we're attacking BYU, just broken pieces on BYU. Are we going to be right with that? No one ever knows. Because a lot of times you don't know what players are coming in. There could be some really good players in the back there.
Right.
But I try to put a gauge on where I feel more comfortable. So I like Fresno State here. I like the line movement to support Fresno State. I think that tells me what kind of action they're going to bring. And if I remember, Fresno State moves the ball pretty well between Jordan Mims and this guy Cropper. So there's just a lot of options for Fresno State there. So I do like Fresno State a little bit tomorrow.
Okay. Scrappy Players checking. I think he's talking about the game before. It sounds like a stay away game at 8.5. I don't think it's necessarily a stay away game at 8.5. I don't know if you're talking about Oregon or Oregon State or Florida. I think we can actually use this to our advantage. 8.5, we can see where the money's going and where the line's dictated based on the sports book, because you can kind of figure out sometimes, like if it's going to be 8.5, and let's say there's all Oregon State money that's coming in now, and then it drops down to 8, like that's 8, 7.5. Like I think this is something to watch. I don't think this is completely a stay away game. I think you can find some real value in Florida, just based on what I've seen in lines in past history before. He's talking about Oregon State. Yeah, I mean 8.5 now with Oregon State. I would stay away because the 10. I don't know. It looks too easy, and I say this all the time. I've worked in the casino industry for over 10 years. If it looks too easy, it probably is too easy. Casinos don't get built because of losers. They're not giving out games. It's just it looks too easy to take them at 8.5 right here with everything that's going on with Florida. Like I think this is a Florida line. I think you stay away with Oregon State unless there's some line movement based off of that looks in favorable Oregon State. Like if people are betting Florida and that money's going up, well, not the money, but the spread's going up to like 9.5 or so, and everyone's pounding Florida, then maybe we go with Oregon State there. But I think it's Florida or nothing here. But thanks for checking in,
Yeah.
Scrappy. I appreciate it.
I'm with Scrap. I don't know if Scrappy might have also been leaning towards stay away maybe a little bit because like the number 8.5 is a weird number. It's just weird. Like if we weren't really breaking down bowl, if this was like a normal week and you gave me 8.5, like I'm not even looking at that game. Like what the heck is 8.5? Like how do you even work it? So I'm with it, and I think that's where it comes into, not just because we were talking about it. It makes more sense that he's right. I mean, 8.5 is a weird number. It's a weird number to be on Oregon State. So even just looking at that, I'd have to take Florida. And then with some of I think with that Pac-12 stat, the trend, I think it just speaks itself. Pac-12 is basically 16 of 32, 33.3% covering in the bowl if they're larger than 6.5. And we know they're not going to be bringing this down 2 more points. They've already done that, unless there's something drastic that happens on the roster.
No, yeah. I totally get that. I mean, the years have shown SEC's been a lot better than Pac-12. I'm a Pac-12 guy because I went to the U of A. I got my Nick Foles jersey back here and everything. But, we know SEC's always been better. And there might have been situations where good Pac-12 teams going against a really bad SEC team, and then this number hits that number, and then they keep it a lot closer than it has been. I mean, I wish I had, like, the Bulls that would back that up. But based on what I watched before and everything. But Scrappy's got a question, actually. He says, I see SMU scoring 45 points. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts, Tech Money?
So that's funny you bring that up. I like that because in the morning when I was prepping for some of this and going over my thoughts from last night and everything, I thought, should we be looking at team totals for SMU? Because the angle of attack is effective. BYU is losing. There's injuries on their defense. There's also defensive coordinator issues. And if the quarterback can't produce, we're going to see the ball a lot, and we're going to control the game. We're going to control the clock and everything. So I can argue that, yeah, SMU – I can argue that we can see SMU scoring now. I mean, do we get it? Geez, every time we think something's going to happen, who knows what happens on the field, but –
Okay.
I like it. I think with 45, you're probably going to get value. I don't think that's – I think it was in the 30s for the basic minus 110, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me check that out right now. But anyway, to kind of bounce off that for the most – I'm all messed up there. But they're averaging 30.5 points a game. If you're looking at that 45-point number, the thing that I'm looking at with this BYU defense, we talked about the defensive coordinator being gone. Their main linebacking core is pretty much gone. That's not even going to help them in general. BYU this year is giving up 30 points a game. That's 100th in the entire country. 100th.
Yeah.
That's outrageous. Like, that's historically bad for BYU, who's usually pretty tough, hard-nosed defensive kind of team. They're 84th in passing yards, while SMU's 6th in the entire country in offensive passing yards. And then they're 93rd in the country, giving up 410 yards in total offense. And SMU's putting up almost 480. I mean, I think Scrappy's onto something here. I mean, if you want to take a team total over and just grip it and rip it, I mean, they might be able to kind of surprise them in the beginning, but then, talent always prevails, like you only have so many, bullets in the chamber for the most part, but it's, you said it's at 30, but I personally think SMU could put up a crazy number at 30 and we're averaging 38. I mean, that's such a low freaking number.
The team total's at 30 for SMU?
That's what he's saying. I mean, I personally don't have it in front of me right now, but
it may have lowered. I'm looking here.
That's a really low number there. 30, that's kind of scary. I'm not going to lie. It looks too easy. But, I mean, they shouldn't be able to put up points unless they're going to really throw something at them this week. But based off of what what BYU's defense is, they give up a lot of points. They give up 30 points a game throughout their season. If you're looking at who they played this year, I mean, they gave up 35 points to Stanford. That's outrageous. But it's just crazy. I'm looking at what else they gave up. The Boise State.
I had 34.5 at
34.5. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He meant 30 plus, but yeah. 30.
Oh, and that's fine. I was wondering if there's a book where you can run a ladder, and what I mean by that is play a whole bunch of team totals all the way up. So take the 34.5 they offer at what I'll call default 40. Price, and then just go up, boom, 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 and start taking the dogs all the way up, and you just gotta hit a few, and then it'll cover the rest, and then as you hit the middle, they pay more anyway.
Yeah, you get up to 40, you'll probably pay like plus 280 or something.
You got to find a book that's offering the alt.
Off the top of my head, but a lot of them have alternate team total overs. I know PointsBet usually does, but if I had to guess an over 40 where it's at 34, it's probably like plus 250, plus 280.
Right, and what I'm so glad you brought it up. I ignored on purpose all the stats and there's. Just go look yourself. The BYU, you talked about them. All the defense stats are bad. Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned in the very beginning, but I didn't want to even break into them and bore people. They're bad. You started going, they're very bad. And you have Mordecai, the SMU QB. I like this kid. There's been times I'm watching SMU and his name sticks out. I just think they're going to be coming in. They're coming in intact. It's an intact team coming in, facing a team. And here's the thing. A lot of times I argue that we're not getting the best product on the field of NFL. It's a different debate and topic. So what happens is players out, everyone bets against him, but the guy that comes in shows up and everyone's like, where's he coming from? Well, how'd you know he was bad? Remember, the owners paid the player you're watching a lot of money. Some of these owners don't even watch the sport. They paid all this money to some guy. They don't care. They want to see him. They don't want to see the other guy. They don't want to see that product. Doesn't matter how good they are. So some of that comes into play, but not for BYU, because if their defense was so bad already all year, they would have already tried playing some of these other guys, and it would have worked, and it didn't work. So I just don't trust anything happening for BYU on defense. Random things happen on any given Saturday and Sunday to make us lose our bets. Agreed. But can I believe that BYU's coming in overly prepared for tomorrow and where it'll consistently execute. No, I don't believe that.
I don't believe that either. And yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think I'm not too worried about it being 34 because they averaged 38, so it's kind of close. If it was 30, I would have felt a little bit more worrisome about it, but 34 is not terrible.
Right. And I could be wrong. I don't have any perspective on coaching and script and all that stuff. I'm just a fan. Like, I'm the most square fan when it comes to any of that. And I just don't see SMU coming in to play to BYU's level tomorrow. It's a bowl game. They know BYU's coming in with the guy from the local pharmacy as a QB, and they're coming in intact. So you're coming in to show off. Tomorrow's the day SMU shows off every piece they have and every piece they've tried to perfect through the year on offense.
Absolutely. Hey, anything else you want to get into, or you want to wrap this up over here?
No, that's it. There's some ATS trends. You know what? I'll maybe type them out there. There's just a lot of stuff. I have a whole list of trends out there, and they're not all for tomorrow's game. So maybe what we can do is we can tweet some out there as additional information. I can type them out. We can retweet them out with our screen there. But just a few things. Georgia 8-2 straight up in ATS in the last 10 bowl games. Kansas has won 5 of his last 6 bowl games straight up and ATS. So things like that. There's a bunch of lists of good areas and bad areas to keep an eye on trends. I just think it's good to know where the lines are built for the bowl games, especially when you can now gauge where the transfers and injuries are and maybe see what you can do with it. So nothing sticking out outside of, I think I want to attack BYU tomorrow. So look, I like Southern Miss 6.5, but when I weigh the chips in the bag, I mean, I feel like I got the big bag here with the unbroken chips on SMU. I got, the hefty size there. And I think I'm going to go with SMU tomorrow.
All right. Nice.
I might have to bet after the show.
No, I like it. You know what? I'm glad you talked about the Florida-Oregon State game because, like, when I was thinking about it, I'm like, oh, Oregon State's going to kill these guys. They don't really have anybody. All their stars are pretty much gone. But the line going down now, and then you brought up that trend as well. It's a small trend, but, it's still, it's just one trend. But, it's something to keep in the back pocket a little bit. But I think I'm going with Florida tomorrow. I haven't booked them yet. I want to see how this line moves to kind of just, like, solidify where I'm at with it. I've seen this situation before, with like Pac-12 teams, SEC teams being a big favorite Pac-12. So I'm looking at Florida here. But that's going to do it for us, guys. A little Rise and Fire Friday. We're giving you guys our best bets, NFL, college. We're talking out games with you guys. Appreciate everybody listening, watching, YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff. Appreciate my man Scrappy jumping in, asking questions.
Thank you, Scrappy.
Informing the fine people, what we're going to bet and what we are going to rise and fire on this weekend. That is Tech Money. Where can they find you? What do you got going on?
Yep, Twitter is probably the Epcot Center, I'll call it, because in my profile I have a link tree and you can find me everywhere. But Twitter is the source, TEKMUNNEE. And just to summarize it, because I always look for summaries, my best bet and official bet will end up being SMU and maybe even that first half. Some things of SMU, and I'll share it as soon as I do it. I'm going to go with the lean with you on Florida plus points there. And I'm going to go with the lean there on Fresno State and lean with Southern Miss. Leans, I like them. I'm not going to bet them officially, but that's why I like to get into those games.
All right, nice, man. That's going to do it, guys. Hey, remember, let's have a profitable weekend. Let's have some fun. Let's rise and fire. And let's go make that money, Tech Money.
Yep. Stay green. Good luck.